round of introduction. Okay, I will call this meeting to order. And because we do have a visitor, we will do a round of introductions. I will start by saying that this is Jackson Chadwick, is that correct?
Yes.
Of Youth Climate Justice. I'm trying to read and my eyes aren't quite working. Of Youth Climate Justice, and he is here to describe the bill that we were talking about last time, an act to establish a climate superfund cost recovery program to impose penalties on climate polluters. So that's the bulk of our meeting agenda for today. And so this is Jackson who will be talking in a few minutes. So let's start with you, Bill. And just who you are and what you're.
Oh, I'm Bill Donovan. I'm a member of the Scarborough Town Council. I'm the liaison to this committee, which I enjoy very much.
I'm Jamie Fitch, the Sustainability Manager for Scarborough.
My name's Anton Boder. I'm one of the committee members.
And I'm Ron, excuse me, Ron Allen, and I'm just a committee member.
You're more than just.
Deb McDonough, I'm pretending to chair.
Jeff Gesick, an alternate in the committee.
And I'm the development review planner for the town.
I'm sorry, your first name. I don't think I've had the pleasure of meeting you.
Oh, I'm Jeff.
Jeff.
Yep, yeah, I was sworn in this year.
You guys may have just alternated for a
Yeah.
little while here. That's quite possible.
He's a new alternate as of like. Oh, I think hold on, I've lost connection to the owl. I don't know what's going on.
Oh, I see all of them.
I think the owl may have come unplugged.
Yeah, we can hear you. We just can't see you.
Well, Jackson's just been in the meeting for 5 minutes and he's already screwed things up.
All right, let's see if that works.
Come on, Jackson, stop playing with the wires.
That's kind of that way. No, don't feel bad about it.
Yeah, we all do it.
What do you mean he's kind of that way?
It's kind of that way. I did not even say you, like, I just meant like the general situation. Now can you hear us?
All right, sorry
Yes.
about that all.
Excellent. We have had a electrical mishap, but we are back. And we are doing introductions, and I think the only introductions you might have missed are ones of us that you already know. But if you could just say your name, and all of y'all are members of this committee, so just tell us who you are.
We'll start with Patrice.
I'm Patrice Castenholtz. I'm out at my camp.
Oh, and
Awesome.
boy, good for you. Lydia
Lydia Job, committee member.
and Dan.
I'm Dan Shapiro. I'm an alternate committee member.
Great.
Fantastic. So that is us. The next thing that we should do, just take care of a couple of quick business items before we get there, is to vote on minutes from the last meeting. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the,
Okay, that was a tie, so I'm giving a tie to Patrice because there's a little bit of a delay from the other side. Ron, would you like to second that?
I would
motion?
love to second.
Is there
That'd be
any
my
discussion?
most favorite thing to do.
Excellent, we're glad to have you play this role. Any questions, comments about the minutes? If not, I think we need a voice vote.
Yeah, we need a
because
roll
have
call
folks on Zoom.
All right. Deb,
Yes,
Ron,
Yes,
Anton,
Yes.
Patrice,
yes,
Lydia.
Yes,
Thank you.
excellent. And then the meeting was sent out by email, so the meeting for the minutes agenda. Blah, blah, blah. The agenda for today's meeting was sent out by email. Again, the bulk of the agenda is this discussion of the bill in question. Anybody have anything to add to the agenda? Okay. Next on the agenda is public comment, and seeing no members of the public beyond Jackson, whom we're prepared to hear from momentarily.
And we've got no members of public online.
Right, okay. Then I would think it's time to shift to old business, of which the first item is you. So I will turn it over to you and
Thank
you tell
you.
us what you need to tell us, and then we will ask you questions. Do you want us to interrupt you for those questions, or would you like to get through your presentation first?
I think questions at the end would be great.
Okay.
This should take 10, no more than 15 minutes.
Fantastic.
So, would it be helpful if I stood up here or sat here?
Well, the owl is there, so they can see you and hear you from there.
Yeah, I would say just share your screen and whatever you're comfortable with,
Okay,
and then we'll go with that. We're pretty informal around these parts.
sounds good. Thank you.
And Jamie's got her screen there, so she can see if somebody's waving wildly.
Yeah.
trying to get her
Okay.
attention.
Wonderful. Okay. Stuff good. Um. Yeah, I just want to say hello to everyone. My name's Jackson Chadwick. I am the advocacy director at Maine Youth for Climate Justice. We are a statewide nonprofit of over 500 youth that advocate for environmental justice policies at the state and local level. We also connect youth with the legislative process here in Maine and help foster leadership skills so that they can be the voices of their generation. We are one of the many organizations that is spearheading the Maine Climate Superfund Act. And so as part of my responsibilities in that coalition, I engage with municipalities and let them know, one, that this bill is in the legislature, and two, encourage municipalities to pass resolutions supporting it.
I do have to jump in there.
Yes, of
because
course.
some folks may have thought we were hearing from someone from the Sierra Club. But Andrew from the Sierra Club is no longer working at Sierra Club because he's going to law school. And so Andrew has put us in touch with Jackson, who is representing Maine Youth for Climate Justice, who's working with the Sierra Club as one of the partner organizations, just for people who feel like something happened. Something did happen.
Is this a volunteer activity for you, or is this a full-time
This is
job?
a full-time job for me, yeah. And yeah, I worked with Andrew pretty closely, so this was a pretty smooth transition of work. But yeah, I'm here to talk about the Climate Superfund. This bill is sponsored by Senator Stacey Brenner, who does represent part of Scarborough and all of Gorham in the state Senate. I just want to start with a little bit of background, as I'm sure all of you know, but our coastal communities and riverfront towns and municipalities are facing a lot of significant challenges. We know sea level rise is projected to inflict billions of dollars of damage globally between now and 2050. And in particular, the 2023-2024 winter storms that ravaged a lot of our coastline, wreaked havoc on a lot of our public and private infrastructure and left some of our communities picking up the pieces. That wasn't just limited to coastal communities like here in Scarborough. It included places much more inland, much more rural, like Jay, Bethel, and Skowhegan. So this is very much a statewide problem. And the reality is towns and cities don't often have the funding or resources to recover from, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars of damage. Talking about Scarborough specifically, the January 10th and 13th storms of 2024 resulted in several $1 million of damage to public infrastructure. The town submitted $4.3 million in damages to FEMA. And that was just from storm damage over a 3-day period, which is pretty crazy to think about. But some of that damage included damage to a sanitary pump station, to some seawalls and barriers, as well as roads across Scarborough. The state of Maine has often had a reactive approach when it comes to storm management. We react when there is a storm and don't necessarily prepare too much ahead for the next one. Legislature did pass a supplemental budget earlier this winter that allocated funds for storm preparedness and climate resilience to help us be better prepared for future storm damage. But that was very much a reactionary measure, and it's only a limited allotment of funds. So if we do have another really bad, intense storm that comes through and wrecks part of our coastline, the Maine legislature would have to go back in session and likely pass another supplemental budget. And that's a process that would have to keep on happening if we kind of stick with the status quo here. So I just want to speak to what is a climate superfund specifically. This concept is very similar to the federal superfund program, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. That was passed by Congress in 1980 and helps clean up environmentally hazardous sites, such as after a really bad toxic spill or a natural disaster rolls through. A climate superfund would do something very similar. It would be for, though, it would be for climate related damages, and it would allow the state of Maine to finance climate adaptation projects across the state without having to raise taxes on Maine taxpayers. And the climate superfund is based on the same time-tested legal principle that the federal superfund program is based off of, the principle of making polluters pay for their mess. So the bill's about 9-10 pages long, but I broke down kind of how it will work into 3 more digestible steps. It would start with the state producing a report on the financial impact of fossil fuel related climate pollution. The state can do this through something that's called attribution science, which essentially compares the climate conditions we're experiencing today to what Earth's climate would have been like without human influence, without such high levels of fossil fuel emissions. Once they've readied that report, the state will identify major polluters, requiring them to pay for their proportion of emissions between the period marked up there, 1995 and 2024. Any oil and gas corporation that extracts, produces, refines fossil fuels, and has emitted over 1 billion metric tons of greenhouse gases between 1995 and 2024 would be required to pay into this climate superfund. So thinking at a global scale, that's less than 100 companies, and it includes some big names like Shell, Sunoco, Chevron, ExxonMobil. This would not apply to any Maine-based local companies that employ people even right here in Scarborough. Once the state's received payments, those payments are deposited right into a Superfund account, and the state can disperse those to municipalities to fund climate adaptation projects in communities. Some examples of a climate adaptation project include upgrading stormwater drainage systems, installing weatherization upgrades in public buildings, retrofitting bridges, causeways, railroads, other public infrastructure, as well as renovating sewage treatment plants and undertaking preventative community health measures. I also want to provide a little bit of recent precedent for this. Maine would not be the first state to pass such legislation. Our New England neighbor of Vermont passed a very similar bill last year in 2024, as did the state of New York. And this bill has been introduced in about 10 other states in 2025. The inspiration for the Vermont bill was after the really awful summer storms they had in 2023. I'm sure some of you might remember that, but that's a picture of downtown Montpelier, just millions and millions of dollars in damage, nothing like Vermont had experienced before. So a bipartisan group of lawmakers came together to pitch this idea, and it was able to pass the Vermont legislature with bipartisan support. And Vermont and New York are currently implementing these bills as we speak. This has also been introduced at the federal level in the US Congress, though that has a very I think, slim shot of gaining traction. The main message I want to hone in on is that this was designed from conception to help taxpayers. We know that a lot of Maine municipalities either have a decreasing tax base or just in general, they've experienced some years of declining revenues. And this bill is a fiscally prudent solution to ensure that Scarborough and other Maine communities don't have to bear the burden of paying for climate adaptation and storm recovery efforts. The coalition I'm representing today believes that responsibility should be held by the fossil fuel corporations who have caused climate change and, you know, have gotten us to the unfortunate situation we're in today. And that is really the inspiration behind this bill. And I just wanted to list some of the organizations taking part in moving this bill forward. I represent Maine Youth for Climate Justice. This bill is also supported by Maine Conservation Voters and the Maine Club of the Maine chapter of the Sierra Club. It's also a legislative priority of the statewide Environmental Priorities Coalition, which is a coalition of 39 environmental groups collectively representing tens of thousands of Mainers. And yeah, just include my contact information here, and I would love to answer any questions or just hear comments or general feedback. And yeah, I'm here as a resource for you all. So thank you for inviting me today.
What do you want us to do?
So I'm engaging with municipalities, seeing if there's interest in Scarborough, for instance, passing a resolution saying they support this bill in the legislature.
There was a draft resolution that was sent around months ago. I don't know if that, is that in this current packet?
It is not in the current packet, but I can send it around
Yeah.
again.
And
Yeah, we have
have neighboring towns, what are some neighboring towns that have passed the resolution or
thanks for that
are
question.
in the process?
Rockland and Yarmouth recently became the first two towns to pass this. We have resolutions in process in a number of other towns right now, including Wells, Bath, Belfast. We're also doing outreach to more rural and inland communities like Jay and Skowhegan, Norwich Walk, areas in Franklin, Oxford, Somerset counties, because we really want this to be a statewide representation of municipalities that support this.
How is this gonna work? How do you operationalize this? I
Like, how do
mean,
you ensure that they actually,
yeah, exactly.
pay what you want?
So you say Exxon's the big polluter and they're responsible for climate change in Maine. What is it? This is like, you're gonna ask them for money or you're. I mean, is this gonna be a tax? I mean. How does it work from a practical level?
I like to think of it as a kind of a one-time fixed payment.
You ask them for a donation?
No, not a donation. This bill is retroactive, so it is not looking at these companies' current or future emissions. It's taking into account the emissions they emitted between 1995 and 2024. So the state would be responsible for doing that research and figuring out that number. And then once they have that, they will start giving notice to these companies that they are going to be required to pay into, they'll be required to pay X amount into this climate super fund.
What's the pushback then?
The
for
pushback.
Vermont and New York?
Pushback is Big Oil wasn't happy that the laws passed there, which is not really a surprise. They did file a lawsuit against the state of Vermont and New York. The American Petroleum Institute was one of those corporations. Those are currently playing out in a federal court, but may take quite a while to fully resolve.
And I'm not terrible, I mean, it would be lovely if it all worked and the money got there and we were able to use it. But I find myself not as worried about that as I am about the messaging.
Hmm.
And having an opportunity to make this statement that y'all owe us this money. And let it play out in the courts. I don't have a problem with that.
But Vermont has received 0 funds at this point, correct?
That's correct. They just passed it last year, so they are currently implementing it. And that's
and
another,
It will not, they will not get any until the court decides that they can get some, right?
most likely not.
Yeah.
And even if
That's fine.
there hadn't been any litigation, this will likely take a couple years to fully implement because the state may have to hire additional staff people to work on this. It would mainly be the state treasurer's office and the Department of Environmental Protection that oversee this implementation.
Boy, the devil's in the detail on this.
But this is like a one. I mean, it's super fun. Let's say it magically works and you throw money in it. And you get no more money, and so when that's gone, you don't have a super fund anymore, it just goes away.
We think the amount that could be deposited into a Maine Climate Super Fund would be enough to be a solution for at least a couple of decades. The state of New York, for instance, is estimating that a much bigger state, mind you, but they're estimating that they'll receive upwards of $75 billion to fund climate adaptation projects in their state over the next couple of decades. After those 2 decades, it may require the state of Maine to revisit this. Again, this is only passed in a couple of states, but.
And is this the model in New York and in Vermont to not have anything forward-looking?
Yes, this
What's the
legislation.
rationale for that?
Sorry.
What's the rationale for that?
The rationale is that it's easier to look back at what these companies emitted than it is to predict their future emissions. And then if, like in New York and Vermont, this ends up in court, lawyers feel like it is easier to argue in favor of the reasoning for past emissions because those can be calculated. That makes sense.
Yes. And so in 2 decades, you could do it again for a different look back period if that were where we're at.
Potentially.
If we're not all underwater.
So would the funds be used for utility repairs from damages such as power lines?
Yep, they could be used for that as well. There's about a half page in the bill of what these funds could be allocated for, and that is one of those components.
You're the lawyer. What do you think about this from an equity perspective?
Well, I think this concept is in its infancy. And will have some time before it plays out as to whether it's lawful or not, whether it's an effective approach or not. I'm glad to be introduced to it, but I'm not sure where it's going. And obviously it's at the state level, and we're at the municipal level. So I'm ready to learn about it, and would I advocate for it? Absolutely. Is it the right vehicle? I don't know. So I think that there's many unanswered questions, but that's because we're at the infancy of this, and we have a couple of states that have now embraced it. And they're states that I would like to think we share values with, so.
And I think there's value in adding additional states to the concept as that is playing out through the court system.
Yeah, so
I think that may change the dynamics of how that works. I don't know the details of the original Superfund legislation. Was that a look back as well?
The original Superfund legislation wasn't really a look back, it was more of a current and future, so.
Okay.
You know, and this has happened in Maine, if there's, a really bad toxic spill, that is when the Superfund program can come into place to help a community.
Right, but
clean
where
it
did the
up.
money come from? Did it come from look back or from? I just don't know the 1980s legislation and how that,
I think it's essentially whoever caused the pollution was required to pay for the cleanup of the pollution. So it was kind of a look back at very specific site by site basis.
It sounded like you are limiting the polluter population. Cutting it off at some level of they have to have polluted so much before they have to pay. Why is that? And why don't we just have everybody? And so it's more equitable that anybody who's a polluter, any company that's a polluter, let's put it that way, has to pay their fair share.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we wanted to concentrate on the biggest names, the biggest companies out there that have caused a lot of this damage, because collectively they're responsible for such a huge portion of these greenhouse gas emissions. And another concern of ours was we don't want any local or Maine-based companies to fall under this, or we don't want them to pay into a climate superfund account. That's not what we're aiming for. It's for these international conglomerates that have done a lot of the damage.
and that's really a question too. I mean, when we looked at some of the other policy proposals for carbon fee and dividend and things like that, they are usually looking at the source. So when is this energy source entering the system for us? And so that's where it is, these major multinational conglomerates. It's not like the guy that drives the oil to your house from South Portland. That those fees are assessed at the top of the source, or at least in most of the proposals that I've evaluated or looked at. So this feels in line with those other.
I don't know, I'm not a climate change denier or anything. I'm just at the philosophic level. I'm just really struggling with the notion of equity in all of this. I mean, with the Love Canal, you could see there was definitely somebody who contributed to that environmental disaster, or with General Electric dumping toxic chemicals into the Hudson. You can see that there's here, but here you're saying you're an oil company, therefore you're responsible for the pollution. But you're responsible for the pollution as well, as I am and as you are, because everybody drives a car. Now, it just seems to me like it's like violating basic notions of what is fair and what's not fair, because we all of us together have collectively contributed to the problem, right?
Yes.
You can't deny that. And the energy that we've experienced in this country for the last 200 years that has been petroleum based, or at least since 1850, okay, has been petroleum based, has benefited all of society. So now you're saying, well, you are responsible for climate change, when in fact, we're all responsible for climate change. And that's why I'm saying I struggle with notions of basic fairness. I mean, I could take the position that you just look around and say, who has the deepest pockets, and let's go after them, because they will pay and we won't pay. You say nobody in Maine will be subject to this, but somebody out there in other world will pay for this. This is where I am at a philosophic level.
And Deb, I just want to note that
Yeah,
I think
okay.
Dan wants to say something, so if you want to go and then we'll go to Dan.
Okay, so
Yeah, I'm still formulating my
I just saw that you unmuted it, so I just wanted,
I
I'm not
appreciate it.
saying I'm against
Yeah.
it. I'm just saying this is where I trip, stumble and fall.
I understand.
And I hear that, and I am hearing the start date of this as some of the most solid research that was done by some of these companies, noticing and acknowledging that climate change was going to be a big problem that they then buried. And so I am totally okay with going back to these companies to say, y'all knew. I mean, it's like going back to the cigarette company, saying, y'all knew that you were selling a product that contributed to lung cancer. You tried to hide that information and you tried to hook the kids.
Yeah, I think that's actionable, but but I think that there's notions of liability there, like you knew, but you didn't do anything.
Right. And I think
I'm
that
not sure
applies-
how well that translates to this particular situation.
I believe that translates very cleanly to the legacy fossil fuel companies. They hired the very same messaging companies that they hired them from the cigarette companies, from the tobacco companies, to manage their own political and cultural liability using the very same playbook. To me, it's very comparable. Very comparable.
Is there anything to just simply like, we as a committee should consider funding that is available to help us with resiliency, regardless of like the big discussion behind the funding, but just like an opportunity presents itself to help us ready for these storms. Do you know what I mean?
That's our
Yeah.
climate action plan.
Yeah,
that's
so,
the work
so
that we're
like,
doing.
so therefore there's funding that's potential funding that's available to help Scarborough in the future. And we as a committee should like be supportive of taking advantage of that.
Well, I think the ask is to say that we as a community are asking the legislature.
Yeah.
To pass this bill.
Yeah, which I personally am in support of. I mean, certainly all of us are contributing to climate change, but there's, corporations are different than individuals. I mean, it's
Yeah.
in terms of
I think
responsibility, so.
I think we as individuals haven't profited off of these things, which is probably the biggest difference between, well, that I think of between driving a car as an individual versus sort of contributing to this systematically as a company and deriving profit from it.
What expenses are incurred by municipalities that support this? Is the appeal process and all the judicial process, is that going to be at the town level or the state level?
That would be at the state level. So this resolution that you have a draft of is really just an expression of support, saying that this community supports the legislature passing a bill like this. Everything on that end in terms of litigation and potential legal hurdles would be handled by the state attorney general.
and this group, a few years ago, did something similar when there was legislation to establish the extended producer responsibility bill that basically made, or now requires, and it's still going through rulemaking, but requires basically those that produce large amounts of packaging to also fund or provide systems to recycle that packaging. So it's kind of a similar thing where the state was targeting large producers, none really that were in the state of Maine, but thinking about the Amazons and the like that, have produce a ton of packaging that can't be recycled. And it was really a way to either reduce the amount of waste from packaging or improve recycling systems. It's still playing out. The legislation's passed. Still working on kind of establishing those systems, but I see this as being somewhat similar as well. Basically, the state taking a stand. And even if it's in a small way, just a representative way to have a voice in this conversation and hopefully recoup.
I think it's an important message
Mhm.
from a practical perspective. I don't know. I'm in Valhalla, so.
Would this be like a fine to the companies? Like how would, like what would the payment, it would be a fine?
It would essentially be a fine, a one-time fine.
So does it say how much that's going to be per, pick a number, ton, millions of tons, whatever, or?
That would be up to the state DEP and treasurer's office to calculate, and that process could.
Okay, so there's an unknown amount of money because we haven't gone through any calculations.
Not
But I think it's an important message, in fact, that it puts companies on notice that states and other people are paying attention to it, and it could be a potential liability for them in the future.
And if you go back to that analogy with the tobacco companies, there were attempts that were unsuccessful in litigation and the companies won, and over time, there's been a shift, and then the companies started to lose those cases. And we have seen settlements over the last decade, providing funds that states
Yeah.
have been able to use.
Had the tobacco companies been smarter about it in the early 1960s or around 64, they might have avoided a lot of problems going forward. And I think that gravitates me to say this isn't important from a messaging viewpoint, but in terms of the practical details, it's like blows my mind.
Patrice has her hand up.
Go ahead, Patrice. Thank you, Jamie. You'll need to unmute, Patrice.
Yep, okay, I just have a question of, Jackson. How many, you said you're a full-time employee, how many, other employees are there?
In my organization, Maine Youth for Climate Justice is a small organization of 5 people, but Maine Conservation Voters, Sierra Club, several other environmental groups across the state have several staff members each that are putting their time and effort into this campaign.
So are you the only paid, person, or?
No, everyone else is paid.
Okay, I agree with Anton about it's hard to get away from, we're all contributing to the climate thing and to blame it just on a few companies. That said, I really applaud Maine youth coming forward with this because it's everyone's future, but especially young people. And it seems to me like youth sometimes is not as involved and interested in what's happening out there. And I'm very enthusiastic about Maine youth coming forward to do something, because we've got to do something. So it's a good start, and I applaud your efforts. Thank you.
I share that, and what concerns me is this may go nowhere once it's litigated. There's the whole question of, we're now saying you're responsible, give us this money.
Yeah.
Well, there's no, and they go, you're created a law now that is looking retroactively back at behavior that was not illegal at the time, and asking us to pay for it. And there's lots of law that you can't do that. So it's a hard win.
Mhm.
But we have the benefit of several states that have stepped up to the plate.
And we have the benefit of the evidence of varying the data.
Yes, so that,
So there may have been a law earlier if that information was more
And unfortunately, there aren't a lot of laws that say, if you're not disclosing information to the public about the problems you are creating, these are not easy legal issues. And conceptually, yeah, I buy this hook, line, and sinker, but is this the proper vehicle for doing it? I have real doubts that it will survive legal challenge.
Yeah, I don't think it'll survive either, but I think it's an important message.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of where I shake
Yeah.
out on it.
Let's let Dan have a chance since he
Yeah.
can't just interrupt us.
Yeah, I have some similar feelings. If it were me, I think my gut says, why not try to pass a bill that looks forward and implement something like this so that we start collecting it. But frankly, I don't know that it's really our responsibility to worry about whether the practical implementation of this is going to be successful. I mean, I think we have a lot of evidence in our world about not taking action and the consequences of not taking action because we're not sure that it's the right vehicle. And instead of doing that, we do nothing. I actually remember just recently Scarborough going through the wetland setback public debates, and there being similar arguments being made. Well, we're not exactly sure. Let's keep thinking about this and studying it. And in the meantime, more and more impacts are happening and nothing's going on. So this very well may go nowhere, and it very well may go somewhere. I mean, it could go somewhere, and it might take many years to do that. But if we don't start that for another 5 years, then we're just 5 years further behind. I remember having a conversation with Ann Carney a few years ago about a bill that I supported, or something that I supported in the legislature, and she sort of made this the argument that, well, I support this too, but it's going to end up costing the state millions of dollars to fight this in court, because surely that's where it's going to go, and that's not where I want to spend taxpayer dollars. And I think to a certain extent we have to rely on our elected representatives to make those kinds of decisions, but it doesn't mean that we can't voice our support for the principles that are behind this kind of an action, or this kind of a bill. And I think we should support it. I'm curious, Bill, what do you think the town council's view of this will be? Do you think they would support this, or what do you think they would need to see in order to support it?
I expect that they would have similar questions that we've asked. I don't think they have a disposition that is that different from those of us around the table. And they'd be open to this kind of thing because conceptually, absolutely. But in the practical side of it, does this work?
I wanted to follow up on what Patrice had said about the youth involvement. Because the other place I spend a lot of time is League of Women Voters, and we've had massive influx of youth involvement over the last 5 years or so. And I was wondering, do you have Scarborough youth on your list that could work with us and could present with us to town council? Can you check?
Potentially, I can go back and check for you.
And if you don't have them on your list, we can put you in touch with the Ecos Club at the high school. That may be able to loop some of those folks in, because I think that you'll find that, yeah, there are a lot of kids that aren't paying attention at all, but I think that you would be shocked at the number of kids that are paying attention and are actively working as hard as they can to get the attention of the rest of us. And I think we do them a huge disservice when we say, I'm sorry, that sounds like it probably won't work. And that we can in fact put our own selves behind some of these things. These folks can't vote yet. And they've been watching us trash the place. And they're having different responses to that. Some of my children are actively engaged in the fight against climate change and against environmental degradation. Others of my children are like, y'all screwed it up. I'm not going to recycle because that's just dumb and it won't solve anything. And so I think we are seeing both responses among young people and also among people our own ages. I think that we're seeing that also. And so I would personally love to see us move forward. And I would love to partner with the local youth in that presentation.
I think that's a great idea. And I do just want to validate some of the concerns that have been expressed here, especially on the practical side, because this is a really big thing. This is not a little ask. But I do agree from a messaging standpoint, at the very least, it's very important. And I'm mainly here today to, just get a conversation started, and hopefully work with all of you.
You would hope that your message finds its way into the ears of some executive at Exxon, who would say in a board meeting or somewhere, hey, guys, we're being bloody, we're being bloody stupid here because we're not thinking these issues all the way through. Unfortunately, short-termism is such a powerful dynamic that they go, yeah, but I gotta worry about next month's income. And I gotta worry about the month after that. And he said the same thing could happen to us as happened to Philip Morris,
Maybe it should.
and look what's happening.
Patrice has her hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on what Deb said about kids getting involved, and gosh, we need more and more youth involvement because that's our future. But thinking about, I'm old, and my children are in their 40s, and they are I don't know, they really don't seem to get it, to do stuff. But my grandchildren, 6, 7, and 8 years old, they are all over it. And you make a mistake, you don't compost something, you don't, you use some product that you shouldn't be using, you do whatever. Man, you pay big time in criticism. And I think that any youth for climate justice needs to be supported. I really do.
Yeah, I do too.
I have a question in a different direction here, more legal. So is Vermont the guinea pig of all this, and they have to pay the bills, and if they win, everybody else
Yeah,
gets
Yeah.
Yeah, class action.
or is it not that way?
I believe Vermont and New York are currently in joint litigation, so I assume it's possible that it could end up as a more class action thing, but
Is there actually litigation now revolving around this issue?
there is, yes.
Yeah, so we have to hope that,
Yeah,
that
so
they set the
come first,
precedent.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is the nature of the litigation?
The nature of the litigation, they're arguing that the states of Vermont and New York do not have the rulemaking ability to,
Who is they?
essentially big oil, but corporations like American Petroleum Institute and ExxonMobil.
Okay.
The ones who would have to pay are
Yeah.
filing suit that they don't think they should have to pay, which is the only responsible thing for their boards. to
And
do.
it's preemptive litigation, and there hasn't even been a demand or anything else for a payment?
Yeah, it's preemptive.
They're just fighting
It's
that.
the fact that the states have passed the power to proceed on this path.
Yes.
And they're saying, you don't have the authority to do this. And all those procedural issues will get played out to see whether or not this as a concept can move forward or not.
Right. And that's where having additional states as, defendants,
Yeah,
could be found.
I did just want to quickly add that this bill, as legislature recently adjourned, so this bill was carried over to 2026. And that was partly the recommendation of the Maine Department of Environmental Protection. They wanted to see how some of these lawsuits played out a little bit more before the legislature fully considers this. This is still in the Environment and Natural Resources Committee, so it hasn't made it to the full legislature yet, just for a little more context.
You mentioned Stacy Brenner's name early on.
Yes.
Where is she shaking out on this?
She sponsored the bill.
She's lead sponsored,
Okay,
yes, yeah.
And Sophie Warren, who represents about half of Scarborough, sits on that energy and environment.
Where did she stand?
I don't know.
I've spoken with Representative Warren. She's very supportive of this bill. She's looked through the language and has expressed her support to me at least.
In terms of kind of traditional Superfund, do states have the authority to, or is it through the federal government to basically set the Superfund, like clean up and collect the fees and all of that stuff?
You mean with the federal Superfund program?
Yeah, I guess I'm just thinking federal, are there state Superfund programs also?
I am personally not aware of any, but I
Okay.
can look into that more. But from my understanding, it's just the federal government's
through EPA.
responsibility.
seems like the tobacco settlement is the role model for this, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, the current administration has basically said we're gonna take FEMA and move it to the states. That's what we're doing here, right?
Yeah, I don't understand that. Yeah, we don't have the rules to understand that argument.
Well, I don't-
But you have to have the money, therefore, this is how we get the money
Yeah.
to be able to be FEMA for
Yeah.
the state.
I don't think they're thinking about moving FEMA to the states, they're just
Well,
saying FEMA's going away and states are on the hook.
Have to figure out how
Yeah,
to make it
well,
happen.
so, I mean, it's the same
Yeah.
thing. I mean, semantics there,
Right.
somehow you gotta be able to pay for these things, cause they're not going to. This is how we go about doing it.
Mhm.
So, hey,
Meanwhile, our messaging at the federal level is drill, baby, drill.
yeah, and.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, no, I know, but I mean,
Yeah, and all of
And a
the,
lot of climate denial.
yeah. all
yeah,
of the-
and this
this
is what,
isn't a
this
real
is what
problem.
makes my head kind of explode
And so
here.
that's where something like this is taking a step to say, no, this is real.
Yeah.
This is calling on the Maine EPA to do the calculations and to say, this behavior has cost the state of Maine this money. And y'all that caused it should be covered with bill.
I'll just go-
On the cursory glance, it looks like Texas, New York, and Montana, at least all state Superfund
Okay,
programs or something equivalent, so
Good.
there are.
There is
definitely
precedent there for-
Yeah, I have heard of the New York one.
So are we at a voting point or?
I mean, we have time.
Mhm.
Because it won't go back to the legislature until at least January.
Yeah.
And so when would we want to bring this to council, what with election schedules and things?
Yeah, I will tell you that the council has been pushing aside things that are important because they did not want to have them interfere with the school referendum vote.
Okay,
When I gave a town council report, I would elaborate a little bit more on specifics of things that you'd say, well, of course we wanna advance that, and the town council has not.
okay.
So, with this discussion, demonstrating some of the concerns and issues go anywhere? No, I don't think so. I don't think this is a good time to do it after the referendum vote in November. Clean slate.
Okay. So that's what I wanted to know. So that gives us some time within this context. So I would like for us to do two things. I would like for everybody to read the draft resolution. I think that was prepared for Rockland, the copy that we had. And if there are other versions that are out there now that we might evaluate, that could be useful to us as well. I would like everybody to read the draft resolution, just to see what that looks like, and if that's something that sounds kind of like something we could start to get behind. The other thing that I would like to do before our next meeting is to find out if you've got any Scarborough residents on your list. And I'm not asking you to give us those names, but for you to reach out to those folks and ask them to contact me. You have my email address.
Yes.
Ask those youth members of your organization to contact me. To start to talk about the youth strategy. And if you find out you don't have Scarborough residents on your youth list, let me know that as soon as you can. And I will reach out to the Ecos Club coordinator at the high school to figure out who that is these days.
I have the contact information. I can-
We will reach out to
Who
them.
was the one who used to do it?
It was Terry Eddy.
Terry Eddy, yeah, what,
Yeah.
she just retired
I
or?
think so, yeah.
To see if that group would like to, and they won't have a conversation until September.
Yeah.
We know they won't have a conversation until September when school starts, but if we could have that on their calendar for that first couple of meetings of the school year. To see if they're ready to lend their support. That they could have a letter to town council, that we could have a memo to
Yeah.
town council with this draft language. I think that's the packet that I would like to have us
Mhm.
send to town council. And I think we can hold off on a vote in here until we've had a chance to review the language. And until we've had a chance to understand what local youth support we may have in our corner.
Yeah, I guess at this point, it's just knowing that this group is supportive of continuing the conversation. And either next month or in September, we can review draft resolution language that we might want to move forward to council. So we'll have a few meetings to kind of work through the resolution and make sure it's tailored to Scarborough and says what this committee wants it to say.
And I'm assuming you can share your slides.
I can email
Send
it.
those.
Yeah, if you could send them to
Jamie,
me,
and then
that would be
Jamie will
helpful.
distribute them to the rest of us, because that has some of the Scarborough specific data that you pulled for us. Do folks have other data requests? Do folks have other data requests before we bring this up again? And if anybody is so inclined, I haven't done it yet, you could read the 9-page bill. And understand more of the details of what's in there, and it might be worth having somebody in this group take that on, if there's anybody specifically interested in reading the legislation.
I did bring a paper copy of the bill if anyone would like it.
And you have a link to the text of the bill in the agenda for today, that's a hot link
Yeah.
that goes straight to the state website with the bill language.
And I'll just put a plug in here too, that as a follow-up from this dovetails nicely with our vulnerability assessment, because we're gonna have lots and lots of projects coming out of the vulnerability assessment, and this may be a future funding source to address some of those. So it is a good kind of like step one out of the vulnerability assessment
Okay.
is for the town to support this
And
legislation.
then the
So
other
we
thing
got
that,
it.
oh, sorry, the other thing that I'd like for us to do is to reach out to our legislative delegation from this committee to, and whether that happens now or happens after a vote, I kind of want it to happen now to ask each of those individuals to commit to what their position is,
Mhm.
and to see what level of support we have from each of those folks. I mean, we've got Stacy Brenner, Senator Brenner as lead sponsor on the bill, but I think it is still worth an email to her. I'm willing to send these emails on behalf of the committee if that's the committee's sense of a good next step. Kelly Newman Murphy, I mean, we know the list.
Mhm.
As long as we don't step on that's not a town council issue, that wouldn't offend them, that we would somehow be stepping on their toes by reaching out to these other people.
They might not respond, they might choose not to respond, and sometimes that has happened when I've reached out to them on behalf of.
I'm just worried about the internal mechanism of this.
Yeah, I would say it's probably best to reach out as private citizen, Deb, and you can share that you're the chair of the sustainability committee.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe not ask officially, I don't know, I'm just thinking about the dynamics of it.
Yeah. I'm open to doing it that way, and are folks okay with me identifying myself as chair of the committee that's had a presentation on this?
Yeah, of
Or
course,
just wondering how
Of
the
course.
delegation feels about it?
Yeah.
Okay. I just need now to remember what I said I was gonna do.
I'll write it up and send it to you.
Okay. Does anybody have any other questions for Jackson before we let him go?
Thanks so much for
Yeah,
doing.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your commitment.
Very enlightening.
Thanks for
for all
having me
of
here,
us.
appreciate it, yeah. And the feedback is really helpful, as we.
I didn't mean to play curmudgeon, but.
Oh, no.
That's just where my
It's-
thing goes.
You play so well.
I try not to.
Somebody has to push me back. That's the job of a lot of people in my life. Hey Lydia's child, how are you? Oh, you look a little bit unhappy. We're still having this dumb meeting. I'm sorry, buddy.
I think he can hear you.
Yes.
That's all right. Lydia can pat him on the head. for
If
me.
you were talking to me, I had somebody else in my ear.
Yes, I was just saying hello to him and apologizing. It's still happening.
He's
I just-
upset that the garbage truck isn't coming today, so don't worry, it's nothing you guys did.
Truck is not coming.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm
Wrong day.
sorry.
Maybe tomorrow,
Friday,
Friday. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
bud. My garbage truck comes tomorrow.
yeah.
Yeah.
My garbage truck came yesterday.
Yep, we all get a different schedule. Okay. So we will let you go now. Thank you
Sounds
for that
good.
information. If we have
Appreciate it.
other requests for information, we will forward those along.
Would anyone like the paper copy of the bill? I also have a few fact sheets.
You know what? I'm not getting on the plane this afternoon. Hand me the paper copy.
Okay.
You have only one paper copy?
I have one
You're
paper
looking for
copy.
something.
Just
Oh,
9.
Okay, I was like, wow.
Like, I've read things way longer than 9 pages.
Yeah, actually likely to read it on paper copy. I can open it on my computer before I get on the plane. Anybody? Bueller? Bueller? Okay, just aged myself.
I know exactly what you were referencing then.
I do
I did
too.
too.
Actually, my children have seen this movie at my request, so, yeah, I didn't realize how much swearing. So I watched it with my children, who were younger than I had intended to watch that much swearing. Okay.
Thank you all so much, I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
Yeah, hang in there.
Thank you. Climate action plan is, let's just take where are we time-wise? It is currently 9:05. We have on the agenda 10 minutes until we should get to updates. But these other things are kind of updates as well.
Yeah.
So Jamie, climate action plan update.
Yeah, just a real quick update. We received 5 proposals from contractors wanting to assist with our development of our climate action plan. Staff are meeting this afternoon to kind of go through the review process. And so I'm hoping by our next meeting, we'll be able to say who the group is that will be helping us. They have not been selected yet, obviously. We're still going through the review process.
Who is making the selection?
So it'll be me, Autumn, Angela, and our deputy public works director are the ones reviewing the proposals. And then we will go through and likely go through an interview process once the proposals have been reviewed and it's been narrowed down.
Thank you. Municipal solar array, we had a very distressing presentation on the viability of these sorts of projects. Last time that we were together. And so at some point, we need to continue that conversation and decide if it's time to pause, drop, or if there are reasons to move forward anyway. But that's a conversation we cannot have in the 9 minutes remaining for this right now.
Right.
So I would just
Right.
encourage,
Can I just say on that point, I think the presentation we had was before the bill passed. When it was still being debated, the bill did pass. There's still additional guidance that needs to come out from the IRS about how some of the things will be implemented. It's not looking great. It's sort of set to remake the clean energy industry generally, and certainly solar over the next over the next few years. So I don't think that clean energy projects are dead. But they certainly are going to look a little bit different about how they get implemented. So this is not, I would say, the ideal time to be moving forward with a municipal solar project, at least until we get further guidance and see how some things in the industry are going to play out.
That seems entirely wise, and I would like to put it on our next agenda to just flesh that conversation out a little bit more. And see what kinds of things we're still watching and what information we want to make sure we're on top of that part of the process. We had notes on the site visit to Wrigley Road. Those are attached here.
Yeah, and I apologize that those were from my memory, so if anybody wants to add to those that was there, I encourage you to suggest edits and revisions, because yeah, it was the best my brain was able to come up with from when we were there out in April.
Okay, and I have to admit that I didn't really read it. I didn't read it at all until just now.
It's very brief.
It is blessedly very, very brief. So the parcel size, location, and zoning lend themselves to solar development, but the amount of lot clearing required may prove to be cost prohibitive. If the town wishes to pursue the development of a solar array on this parcel, best course would be to release a request for proposals. I think I'm probably more negative on that parcel than that sentence implies. But I don't know if that is.
Well, I think we're even more negative on that parcel, knowing the current climate around renewable energy
I think
projects.
those are two separate questions.
Yeah.
That even in a different climate, I would probably be looking for a different location than that one. But I would like to continue to bump the question of how to think about this parcel.
Mhm.
And I would like to kick that over to Conservation Commission as well. Because I think that what we don't want is to have that parcel do a crappy unmanaged succession into some nightmare of a not forest, which is what it's trying to do right now. And that should either be a managed process, perhaps under the Scarborough Land Trust, or that should be not a process and it should be open to commercial development.
Yeah,
or-
I will say, I think that there are much higher value parcels that the town owns that would lend themselves to kind of conservation and management than that one. I mean, that one's smack dab in the middle of an industrial
It was
zone.
strangely connected. When I zoomed in on it on maps, I was like, oh, that's not as isolated as I had thought it was. And so I
If I'm
think,
looking at the same one.
so I think that I think we should make sure that this stays bubbled up. And I would like to see some movement away from old industrial trash site to something that is not old industrial trash site. So I would rather not vote on this until we get maybe a little bit more, I think.
I mean, really, that was just a summary of what we discussed at the visit and not kind of a commitment to next steps or anything like that. So.
Okay. So let's keep this on the agenda as well. Again, I think it's not a rush. I think it's gonna carry on doing exactly what it's doing nearly indefinitely. And at some point, we should do something other than that.
My initial reaction is I don't think that property would be high on the list for the Scarborough Land Trust.
Right.
Probably not, but given the limited plots that are available at all, and given that that one is closer than I thought it was.
You'd
Yeah.
be surprised that the Parks and Land Board just approved the town's contribution to this purchase of this 60-acre piece up off of Beach Ridge Road, not far from Gorham Road. It's a magnificent piece of property, and they say they're bringing something else in the next meeting too. So they do have some things.
But how much more do we need to get to 30 by 30?
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, we still need a couple thousand acres. But since there aren't large parcels left in Scarborough, they really are looking at quality over quantity and what habitat benefits does it provide? Recreation benefits, things like that, and there are still some much nicer.
Oh, no doubt, no
parcels
doubt.
than-
I just said it,
With
I
their-
just didn't think it would be high on their list. I
And
didn't
with
say
their
it was-
limited resources.
But
and
if we
things like
bought it
that.
for $1 and could sell it to them for $1, that. It doesn't,
Yeah, it could,
Anyway.
could be a donation. you know.
So I'm not trying to make a decision about what it's for, but I think that we need to pursue sort of two paths away from what it is right now.
Yeah, it could be a mattress dumping ground, unfortunately.
And that's kind of what it is right now. Yeah. And it's a crappy collection of invasive species.
It's just
in
not,
unmanaged
it's just not
disaster.
really pretty.
Like it's a bad, right now it's a bad situation. And it doesn't need to be a bad situation.
You mean a worse situation, a better situation.
It doesn't need to continue to be a bad situation at this particular level. We can do better than that. Okay, so keep that on the list. Oh, shoot, I just closed this. Is that okay with everybody else? I'm just making these decisions, sorry. Keep it on the list. Okay, thank you. Sustainable Scarborough Day updates.
Yeah, so I had a meeting last week with GP Cog. They kind of help with EV ride and drive events. If you recall, we had the kind of the largest EV ride and drive event in the state last year at Sustainable Scarborough Day. We're going to do that again this year, partnering with them, and they are also working to bring in kind of medium and heavy duty EVs as well. So trying to appeal to the business community who might be interested in purchasing an EV piece of equipment, electric piece of equipment, or an EV vehicle, heavy duty vehicle. I'm hoping we can make it almost like a touch a truck event also, and market it that way so that people can come in and kind of check out what large equipment is also being produced as electric vehicles instead of traditional gas powered.
Very, very cool. What kind of trucks are these?
So
Large equipment, what do you mean?
they're gonna work on what can be brought in, but I think they're looking for like a dump truck. I suggested one of the electric school buses that one of our neighboring communities has invested in. Potentially like forklifts and things like that. They're just gonna see what people have available
That's
around.
cool. That's good. That's good.
And
Has the Maine post office picked up any of the electric delivery vehicles, or has that project?
I don't
totally.
I'm gonna guess that that's been.
Did any vehicles get into the field before that got squashed?
I have
But-
not seen any. I haven't looked into it either.
Okay,
But I'm gonna guess we have not.
probably.
You probably don't want to coordinate with the post
I sure don't.
office.
No, I definitely don't.
Next on this list is discuss community activity needs and next steps. Do we have things we need to take action on today?
So just, and maybe Patrice, if you have anything to add to this conversation, we had talked about doing, again, attempting to do the cooking demo. And so I don't know if there's any update there.
I
Yeah,
have I have a chef who is willing to try, but I have not managed to find anybody that has experience really cooking on electric induction stoves. I have reached out to schools and to Southern Maine Community College. Unfortunately, everybody is away for the summer, so that might not happen until end August, beginning of September, when people start to come back. About other things, like the sculpture contest, that also the schools haven't responded. Everybody's on vacation now. Unfortunately, when I got to them at the beginning of June, things were really winding down. I have managed to get have you gotten the papers filled out for ACE and some other companies, or no?
No, not yet. They haven't responded yet. And
Okay, so
I'll
I'll
send
make-
you the link. I can send you
Okay.
the link to like my tracking spreadsheet so that you can see who's responded and who hasn't. So
Okay.
you can give others nudges if you need.
Are there
I
other
am.
tasks that you need some of the rest of us to take on in this next month, or can we defer the next part of that conversation?
Yeah, we can defer. I think the next thing is going to be really starting, publicize and promote it and things
Yeah.
like that. And we
Um,
are going to be in the, community services fall catalog this
Oh,
year.
good.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Maine Audubon is coming with all their native perennial shrubs and small trees. And Andrew Fish, who is head of the horticulture thing over there at the farm in Falmouth, is going to be doing sort of hourly promos about why plant native stuff. I'm now the sustainable representative from our committee to the sustainability committee at Piper Shores. And I've convinced them to join. They're going to have a table. Have they sent anything in yet? No. They have
haven't.
agreed they're going to do it. And they said, well, we don't have anything to sell. Why are we going to come? And I can't believe the number of sustainable things that these people are doing. And they're, several hundred units. We have large developments, condo associations, whatever, in Scarborough. If other organizations took the same lead, it would really make us a very sustainable town. So I think they're going to really add to it. I'm working on
So-
things.
Like information board kind of level.
Information, yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. And again, if there are tasks that you need some of the rest of us to take on, let us know what those are in the next couple of months when things ramp up. We are ready now for updates, and we're just a couple minutes behind the schedule, which is awesome. Town council updates.
Piper Shores is an incredibly proactive
Oh,
community.
yes, they are.
Incredible.
We put ourselves on the list because it's a 5 to 7 year wait. But we
6 to 9, 6 to 9.
6 to 9, and all our neighbors at Harmon's Island have all done the same thing.
Maybe I should be
So-
getting on the list.
It's
fine.
On a personal note, I badgered revision repeatedly, knowing that we have this, what I think of as an incredible step backwards in solar and renewables. And so they found it's a 1-day project. They promised me they'd try and do it. I've just badgered them. Last week they did it. So I have everything on my roof. This is the 3rd time revision's done a project there. And so I'm very pleased with that.
Good job.
As far as the town council is concerned, the thing that has come up lately that has sort of shaken my faith in the town council was the Marshview project, which is senior affordable housing.
Right.
Yes.
This is a no tax impact, positive contribution to the community and the people who would live there. And only Corey Fellows and I voted to move it forward. So it was a 5-2
Wow.
vote, and it just.
The vote against it was because of,
And I had originally said, gee, that's a difficult site to get in and out of traffic wise. And the South Portland municipal, whatever that put this
Housing
forward,
Authority.
housing authority, cut it in half or by more than half. Because they now limited it to just senior affordable housing, no workforce housing. And so traffic was the big issue on the table in the months that led up to the vote last week. Well, they've done everything possible to address that, to allow the site to be used for this purpose. It's otherwise gonna be used for another purpose, which will be demonstrably worse than this. And so that's the one thing that I wanted people to be aware of here, that I don't know where to go with it. At this point, I think Tom Hall is supportive of trying to find a way with South Portland Housing Authority to find a way to move it forward. South Portland bought the land, not knowing that they had the authority to build the project. So they're kind of in a bad place, they're stuck. It's just something it'll be in the newspaper, keep your eye out for it. It's an incredibly valuable, and I kept saying to them, what do you mean we've already done our part? I could have 1,000 more of these projects and Scarborough's name would continue to be, what a great community. Senior affordable housing. This is something you can't get enough of. Because it doesn't ever hurt the community, it only contributes to the community.
So the project is dead.
I have an
As
update
of
from
now.
the planning board.
South
Lines.
Portland Housing Authority is before the planning board for site plan approval. I think they're gonna go forward with that. And get it.
They were asking the town council for a credit enhancement agreement,
And
correct?
that was what was voted down.
And that
Right,
was
that's what voted down.
last week.
And so if there is the possibility that this project could go forward without a credit enhancement agreement. They would get site plan approval. But the thing the town council could do would be to take funds that are in a separate fund that are available and make it as a contribution to the cost of the project. Because this is all based on a competitive point system for the financing at the state level. And unless you have all these elements like local support, you're not gonna do well.
That's a big one.
So it's possible that it is not dead.
And then you said that a lot of things are on hold until we have the school vote in
Right,
November.
and a lot of the voting here articulated, oh, let's not put anything up that would be, because growth there's been some workshops that were completely out of control in terms of stridency on the part of those who were saying, no more growth. And of course, this is the kind of growth that doesn't have an adverse effect, like what's the wrong with growth? Sends all their children to the school system, blows up the budget, those kinds of things. This wasn't that kind of growth. So the town council at this point, I think is, they're,
So holding off until we get through November.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
did you have planning board
I did just a couple,
to add to that?
for planning board, yeah, so I'll start with Marshview, they're coming back for site plan review on our August agenda, so that's coming up. And that's, no more contract zone, it's all as of right zoning, and as you said, cut in half, so we'll see. How that discussion goes, and our last planning board meeting, the planning board approved an amendment to the zoning ordinance to define landscape contractor use, which is separate from just the sort of general contractor use in the Running Hill, Borum Road, mixed use district, the light industrial district, and industrial district. So that's still approved as a special exception, so they still have to go through Board of Appeals review process. But that's the biggest update. It was mostly just a few sketch plans and other things at the last meeting. And then the only other update is the short-term rental ordinance. At our last ordinance committee meeting, staff was asked to draft a registration only ordinance, so taking back some of the regulation language that was being workshopped. And that will be reviewed at the next ordinance committee meeting in September. And that's all.
That will start to give us a list of
Yes.
how many properties involved. Okay,
Is short-term anything less than a week?
It's a good question. I forget what the specific.
I thought it was less than 6 months.
Yeah, it's pretty.
And there was a lot of pushback at the ordinance committee on the short-term rental as overreach.
Yeah.
And so, we decided to, we can track it, but let's not over-regulate it at this point.
and then once we have. the data,
Because
we
we're a
have-
beach community, we've got bing,
Yeah.
and so, short-term rentals are very prevalent at all three of our beach communities.
So really just to get a handle on what the status is currently in terms of short-term rental, and then make some decisions once we have that information.
Okay, quick updates on conservation and or transportation.
Yeah, conservation, very brief. Still just working towards Tree City USA designation. Transportation committee, they're wrapping up the, I think they actually did the council approve the transportation study at the last meeting. And then Angela has been kind of the point person working with Metro on the pilot project that's being proposed, and we'll hope to have kind of an overview presentation for this group either next month or in September, depending on when kind of contracts are signed.
I look forward.
So that you can have some information about that. Vulnerability assessment, we are working towards wrapping things up. There is a town council workshop scheduled on August 20th, to kind of present the findings of the assessment to the town council, and we're also scheduling wrap-up meetings with the Higgins Beach and Pine Point neighborhoods, kind of bringing everything back together and what the recommendations are. And the outlook is for those two areas, and then also giving them some information about changes at the state level related to permitting and what will be allowed and will not be allowed in sand dune systems and things like that, because they're really limited in what they can do in terms of resiliency and adaptation, because those are both situated in coastal sand dune systems.
And then it says here that our next meeting date is August the 27th at this same time in this same place. And unless somebody has something else they need to say, I would request a move to adjourn.
A second.
Someone has to move it first. I'm not sure I'm allowed to make.
He moves it, and I'll second.
Thanks, guys.
See you all in August.
Excellent. All right.
We're